Hi, everyone, and welcome back to I'm a Fan. I'm your host, Kimber Eberly, and today I'm excited to have this guest. She produces her own podcast called Duality. She reads cards, she does moon meetings, she's a community organizer, a full plate. I'm so excited to have her here. And if you notice, I'm not on the I'm a Fan set, we're actually on her set. So, welcome, Ash.
Hey,
Thank
thank
you
you.
for coming.
Thank
I
you
know it
so
was
much for
sort of
having me.
short notice, but I'm just so glad to have you here because I've been wanting to talk to you a long time about the things that you do. And let's just start off with where you come from, and because I saw some things that you like to support. So talk about where you come from and how you ended up on Staten Island.
As far
Yeah.
as my ethnicity and like where my
Yeah,
origins,
yeah, all of
yeah.
that.
So
Yeah.
I'm actually a native Staten Islander. I've been born and raised here.
Okay.
My father was here for quite some time, and my mother was an immigrant from Colombia, and she moved here in her 20s. Yeah, so I've been here for always. I did move to Colombia for a few months, and got to like reconnect with my roots on that side.
Do you have
Um,
relatives there?
Yeah, I have a lot of relatives that still live there. I have a lot of cousins and like distant great aunts and a
Oh
lot of different.
wow.
Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
lot of different. Most of my close family, they all essentially immigrated to America at some point, whether Florida, New Jersey, New York City, Staten Island.
That's
So.
awesome. Was it hard for them to go through the whole immigration process and
Yeah, for sure. Like I know that my mom, when she tells me the story, she came out here to just visit my tia, one of my aunts, and she said she came out here, and at the time there was no cell phones, and she didn't know a lick of English, so she was
wow.
trying to like commute to find my tia because she couldn't pick her up from the airport, so she was trying to like figure out how to pay money for a bus. Excuse me. And she was just like she was lost. She was trying to find. I think my tia lived in like West Brighton or something, and my mom's never been to America, nonetheless. That island, so she was just doing her
Wow.
best.
That had to be like a culture shock for her,
I
big time.
bet. Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
even imagine. I give my mother so much credit for being able to come here and just taking on a whole other language and just figuring that out.
Yeah.
She was planning on going back, but that didn't end up happening. So then she started working out here. I believe she worked at like Sears or something. She met my father. Like one of my mother's coworkers was my father's cousin, and then
Oh,
they ended up meeting like at a bar or something, and then that's
nice.
how they ended up.
I want to talk about your podcast that you produce, Duality. And we are actually drinking tea today that you made called Duality.
It's our signature tea for the
I'm not a
podcast.
tea drinker, but I think I was telling you this tea is really good.
Thank you
It's
so
really
much.
delicious, and it has a lot of healing healing herbs and stuff in it. So just talk about this tea.
Yeah, so this tea is something like I usually make a bunch of different teas. If I don't have the time to make it, then I'll use the pack of teas that I have at home every morning that we do the podcast. But this has been one that I've made quite often, and every time I make it, I feel like it's like the fan favorite. So
Yeah.
this one has an herb. It's completely herbal. It's butterfly pea, a mix of mullein, ginger, and some other things in there. And it's the butterfly pea is actually such a peculiar plant that
Yeah, I've
it
never heard
turns.
of it.
Yeah, it turns
It's so,
it turns the water magenta and or blue.
yeah, it's
Depending
blue.
on if it has acid in the atmosphere of the tea. So if we were to take a lemon, the whole thing would turn magenta. It actually helps you see in the dark, which I think is really cool. I also think on a metaphysical level, it helps you to see in the dark. So like when things get kind of heavy,
When you
like
said that, I'm thinking, oh, does it give you X-ray vision too? It's like,
imagine, I mean, maybe,
wow.
when I think about it, I also think about it in that metaphysical way of like
Yeah.
seeing in the dark. So like when things are getting heavy or like when it's kind of mucky, being able to see things as they are. So I kind of look at it like that as far as you know, I feel like every herb has multiple layers of understanding. Like we have the physical, right? We know that mullein helps with our lungs, right? But our lungs also carry grief. So in that, it's also helping us to process grief, you know, and then on a metaphysical note, it'll have certain properties and come from a certain planet, you know, that is assigned to it, just like astrologically. So there's so many depths to it, and then it's grounded with that ginger. So just kind of like.
And this is why I love your podcast, because you go into that deep philosophical mode and reasons that you can explain why things happen, and they make sense. They make sense. That's why I kind of call you a spiritual leader or a spiritual advisor, because it's always so interesting to talk to you, and you make people feel better because you always find the positive in things, even through your tea. So talk about your podcast, because it's called Duality.
Yeah.
And it's been, how long have you been doing the podcast?
It's been about 3 years. It was
Wow.
birthed in 2019. 2019, yeah, I said that and it sounded like I said it wrong. 2019, Ariel and I started it. And shortly after that, Ariel was feeling like she wanted to do something else. And she passed the baton to me and said, you know, keep going. And, you know, like she had convinced me to do it. And so it was like such an interesting transition from there. And then I was like, oh, I need another podcast host, because believe it or not, despite the fact that I, you know, do interviews or I have a podcast or I facilitate different things, like I could be very shy. And I've been working a lot on that.
You would
know?
never know. You would never know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, when I'm speaking one-to-ones, I'm very grounded and safe in that. But once it becomes a larger audience, or you know, it's a big reason why I do it live, because it's just like I throw myself into it. You know what I mean? So it's just like, but it's always it's progressed to that, because after me and Ariel did it, and I felt very underexperienced and like not familiar with podcasting, she taught me a bunch, and then she like went her own way. Then I was like, okay, well, I need a podcast host. I can't do this by myself. And I found my friend Nev, and at the time, you know, we were doing it when we could. Like I had a Yeti microphone, and, you know, we were just doing it in my room, and we were just like doing the best we could, you know. And then I was very lucky that Kenny wanted to help me with this podcast and created that safe space. And, you know, then just all I had to do was kind of just show up and like do it and be consistent. And like I had to push myself and be like, all right, well, I know me personally, if I were to, every time, because I never did it live. So if it was pre-recorded, it would take me so long to edit it and put it out there, because I can be very perfectionistic. So I'm like, rather than me putting one podcast out every however long, because it was very sporadic.
Yeah.
I want to be consistent. So I'm like, the only way I'm going to do that is if I have to overcome the fear of going live and just not even edit it, just as is, boom. Because the whole point of the podcast is called Duality. So, you know, duality, like the yin and yang, the spectrums, the balance, the dark, the light, all of that. And then duality, like TEA, like sip, because the nourishment of tea. And every time somebody comes on, whether it's just me or somebody else, you know, I make tea in the morning, and I love tea. You know, so like the tea is just like a nurturing aspect of that. So.
And it is very healthy for you, because it is an herb. Mm-hmm. So, you know, a lot of times different teas have different
benefits, for sure.
Yeah, ingredients in them that help. Like I know Rena, you know, she gave me a tea for inflammation, and it actually helped. So I'm amazed at like the different things that you can put in tea.
Yeah,
that are really healthy for you.
But that was like the first medicine, you know, before we had Advil and all of these different things.
We still do, and it's awful.
We had, you know, willow bark. There's a lot of hidden factors in a lot of our food and quote unquote medicines that we consume. You know, it's like even in the medical field of like finding, I'm not anti-medicine, so I want to just like put that out there. Like I'm a person that believes in balance, so like whatever is accessible for you. Not everybody has the education or the knowledge on herbs or feels confident enough to completely separate from that and go into that. And then also sometimes, like, I get it. If you're in a lot of pain, like, you got to take something. So I understand, like, when it comes to herbs, it's a lot. It's a lot longer of a return. It's like it's a long-term return, but it takes a lot longer. Not everyone has the patience, so I can understand that, you know. And it's like with herbs, it's like even in Colombia now. When I was just living in Colombia in 2017, like I can't believe it was 5 years ago already. But anyway,
time flies.
It really does. You know, one of my tia's boyfriend at the time had gotten sick, and he got prescribed jengibre, which is ginger, like tea.
Oh.
He got prescribed ginger tea, like that. The doctor was like, "Here, go get your script for ginger tea." Like that was the thing, you know. And I was like, I love that. I think that's amazing because that's what we did. Like you would go, you know. Well, first there was the herbs, and you know we would hunter gather, and the indigenous peoples from wherever, you know, would figure it out. Like the hunter gatherers from all across the land, and then after that became homeopathy. After homeopathy, it became more modern medicine of what we know it now.
So how did you get started in all of this? Because, you know, when I watch your podcast, you know, you work with tarot cards and you do a lot of readings. But go back, when did you first get interested in all of this? Like, how did it happen?
So I was always interested in it. I feel like I was just born interested in everything that was kind of mystical. I always drew eyes. Like that was the thing I always did. Like I always drew eyes. I was always obsessed with eyes. And my dad told me that my grandmother, I've never met her, but that she used to always draw eyes, and I thought that was really interesting because I never met her. So
well, they say eyes are your soul or something.
The window to your soul. Yeah. You know, it's like I feel like you can learn a lot about eyes and like about the way people interact with their eyes or just looking at them and like looking into their eyes.
It also makes me feel intimidated because you're looking at me I'm thinking, oh, does she know? Like, because
it could be vulnerable.
What sign are you?
I'm a Cancer.
So that's intuitive, right? Mm-hmm. That's an intuitive. So I know Pisces, I think, is one of the most intuitive signs out of all of them. I think they become priests and whatever, like therapists maybe. But yeah, like you know a lot about that. I don't know that much about it. But.
Yeah, you know, with the signs, it's like there's so many layers to it. It's like, you know, it's like when we are just going by our sun signs, which is the ones that we know, which you are a Capricorn.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like
it's like she knows.
It's like when we go through our signs, it's like when we just know our sun sign, it's very vague. You know, I strongly encourage everyone to kind of get into their natal chart if they're interested in kind of looking at their whole, like if they're interested in astrology and want to look at the whole thing. Because it's like a screenshot of the sky when you were born. So you'll find out like, okay, well, my sun sign is Cancer, but my moon sign is Libra, and my rising sign is Leo. So like that translates to, I'm a person that it might be intuitive or emotional or sensitive, but the way I process emotions is very balanced, or it does best to be fair, and then the way I express it is very almost loud and confident in that way. Like it's a lot of this stuff. You're like,
it's really in depth.
It takes a while.
I had a person do my chart years ago. It had to be like 25 years ago. She actually did my chart, and she wanted to know. And fortunately, I had the exact time that I was born.
That's good.
The time, you know, and everything. So I gave it to her. If I want to say that I've read that she gave me a book, like because she did every sign, like this in Libra, this and that. But what was interesting was 25 years ago, she said, in your future, you'll have bone problems, and it's specifically knee problems. And I, you know, three years ago, I got knee surgery. You know, it's like I'm looking at that and thinking, how could they know that? How could they know that? Like she was spot on with everything.
Yeah, I think it's a combination between like the what people have left behind as far as this mechanism, and then also intuition. It's a combination of both when you're going to these readers.
Yeah, because there's a lot of skeptics with it, but this has been going on for centuries.
For sure. And I
Yeah.
think that there's like, the thing is, you take what resonates and you leave what doesn't. There's plenty of times that people, like the first time someone opened up my world, shout out to my friend Bree, she literally, I knew her, but we weren't like close.
Yeah.
But we knew of each other, and like we were acquaintances, like we had hung out a few times, but I knew she didn't like know intimate details about my life. So she was like, oh, hey, like, do you know what time you're born? Like, I want to do your chart. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, and she started explaining. And I'm like, okay, yeah, boom. And I just knew what it was off the top of my head. I don't know how, but I did. And she starts telling me, like, when you were 7, this drama and the blah, 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 and like things that she could have never known. And I was just like looking at her feeling very exposed and vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I didn't agree with a lot of things that she said. But then a few years later, I was like, she was right. I was just not
That's so
receptive to
weird,
it.
right?
And I believed, but there was some things that I believed a lot. And that, like, literally that week, I got these tattoos. And this is my sun, moon, and rising.
Oh, wow.
So
It's
I
really
wanted
pretty,
to, like,
actually, the
thank
symbols.
you so much. Yeah. Yeah, I really like
Where
this
do these symbols come from? Like, I always think of Egypt, you know, or...
Well, yeah, you know, it's like astrology is weird. It ties back to Egypt, but then it also ties back to other origins of places. Like, I don't fully know. Like, I say I know a little bit about astrology. People think I know a lot. I think I know a little bit because the people that I know how to read all of the things. Like, I could look at your chart and be like, oh,
You know,
but
that's always the case. We're always learning, right?
Of course, yeah. So I don't personally know, like, the detail of, like, the full origin of it. But that's something that I would actually like to really look into because
Yeah.
I'm big on, like, the origin stories of things. And I know I've looked it up, but I certainly didn't retain it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm fascinated by all of it because, like I said, a lot of it, you know, just amazes me how it's just spot on. Like, but there's also fake people too.
Absolutely.
There's real, genuine card readers. And then there's the fake, which I think are the ones that the 800 numbers that call you to give you your reading every day. And
Yeah, if anyone's going out of their way to reach out to you for a reading or, like, to broadcast it in that way, just be wary, you know, be mindful because people don't really do that when they're actually reading someone.
Yeah. I want to get into your moon meetings. Now, I haven't attended one. I'm going to attend one. But talk about that. And every time I look at the full moon, I think, oh, yeah, Ash is having her moon meeting.
Yeah, so to make a long story short, I've been facilitating them for about 5 years now.
Yeah.
It started off when I had just came back from Costa Rica. I had just had a very, like, spiritually profound experience where I, like, sat with medicine out there, and, you know, it was a big transition of my life. So I came back and I was looking for a spiritual community, and it was very scarce on Staten Island. And I came across this place. It's called Zen Trading Post. They go by a different name now. I'm not sure if they're going by the Zen Reiki Center, or I believe they changed it to something recently. But a lot of love and homage for that place because it was like my second home. You know, I came back and instantly I was like, wow, I'm so grateful that I'm around people that I can, like, relate to, especially at that time. I was super sensitive coming back from that experience. But all that to say, I ended up connecting with the people there, moving to Colombia, not thinking I was going to move back, coming back. And then within the next few days, they had called me. They wanted me to work there. So I was like, okay. So I started working there. And a few people there in the community were like, we should start doing moon ceremonies. And I was like, well, have you ever been to one? And they were like, no. And I was like, well, respectfully, maybe you should go to one before you want to facilitate them. You know, with love. Like, that's just how I look at things. But I was going to moon ceremonies for years at that point. So they were like, oh, could you kind of show us? And I'm like, I could show you, but, like, I'm not doing it because, like I said, I was very shy. So I was kind of doing it behind the scenes for about, like, 6 months where, like, people didn't know that I was, like, setting up the altar or giving the information out for whatever was going on. At the time, we called them moon ceremonies. And there was 3 of us, but no, I was like the hidden one. I was the secret one. No one knew I was doing it. I would just sit down and sit.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and until it hit a certain point where it was like, okay, I'm starting to feel resentful. Like, people are also starting to, like, one of the facilitators, he was like, you need to come up here. Like, you need to. And I'm like, I know I need to, but I don't want to, I'm afraid, and then I started sitting up there, and I started, because not that it was like we were on throne, it's just like you sit by the altar, right?
Yeah.
All that to say, long story short, time went on, people changed, other people came in, time went on, the pandemic happened, the 2 people that I was facilitating these moon ceremonies at the time, didn't want to do it anymore, for their own personal reasons. And I didn't feel like I had an option personally. Like, of course I have an option, but like, especially during the pandemic, like, people were reaching out, like, we need this. Can you do it on Zoom? And I'm like, I don't know if I can do this on Zoom. Like, if despite my age, like, I don't really like to do anything online. I like to do things in person.
Yeah.
And, but we made it happen. And those were actually, like, incredible. So, like, to kind of get into what it is like, it's essentially, so it used to be called a moon ceremony. Now it's called a moon meeting. The reason is because I want to meet people where they're at. I don't want to intimidate anyone to not come. It's a space that is open to all people and all practices, as long as they love and respect one another. And are not trying to push anything on one another. Mm-hmm. Me personally, my religion and my base is in Native traditions and indigenous walks, so like that shamanic path. And, just believing in nature and like believing in creator, and, you may call him God, or you may call it the universe, whatever you resonate with, or Allah. Like, everybody has different origins. Right. And that's okay.
It all kind of comes to the same place anyway. Yeah.
So it's about just us coming together. We come together during the full moon. The full moon is symbolic of revealing, right? So it's all about letting go of what no longer serves us. Okay. Right. So
sort of like a Carl Jungian kind of thing with shadow work.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're putting the light into the dark. Yeah. And that's exactly what's happening.
I know so
something, it's like, right? Well, it's like the yin yang, you know what I mean? You're putting the light in the dark. So absolutely. And you look up to the sky and it's all dark, and then you just see this big, cheers. So with that being said, like, we come together to get to know one another. I feel like it shifted a little bit now with the community meets. I'm kind of making them like a potluck. I've been cooking. Or like making, like, a drink or like some tea for everybody, and like whoever wants to contribute, they can. Yeah. I just always respectfully ask for anyone's allergies, to just say that first. And we pass around a talking stick, and when that talking stick is set in place, we are all to listen and to not interrupt, because I feel like a lot of times we're all quick to like, me too, oh, I resonate, and that's beautiful, it's great, but sometimes people just need to be heard and not like
you feedback. Actually have a talking stick?
Yeah, it changes sometimes. Like, I talked to my elder about it, like he. There might be a legitimate talking stick coming into the works, but right now I work with what I have. I've been given this really beautiful piece of mica, this crystal, like it's this big. Yeah. And it was actually grown on Staten Island. Like, it's a piece of Staten Island. It's a rock from Staten Island.
That's nice.
I was given from this incredible triple Scorpio woman that I stumbled upon, who has that driftwood place right across the street from the Staten Island University, from the hospital. There's a place there, this woman, she's an artist, and her whole backyard is literally like driftwood. Wow. And it's incredible. Like, it's incredible. And
is that like a secret place that nobody
low
knows?
Key, I mean, it's her house, right? Yeah. But she does that. She invited me in because I was looking. She was like, do you want to come in? And then we sat and we talked, and that was like, that's a whole other story. But to get back to the moon meets, essentially it's a safe space for people to come, to validate themselves, to be heard, to be witnessed, or just to listen, and then to let go. So I don't like to necessarily use the word ritual because I don't scare nobody.
Right. But like, an altar is always kind of like.
Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, an altar is a three-dimensional version of a vision board. Yeah. Right. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It's literally just a three-dimensional version of a vision board, and a place to honor your ancestors. Then, you know.
I have a little makeshift altar at my home, and it's not really an altar, but it's a bookcase. And it has like everyone who's passed on, their photos and stuff, even like little pieces of hair with my cats. I mean, you know, it's weird, but like I consider that like
That's
sort of like
your
my
sacred space.
Yeah.
That's where you can go to pray. That's where you can go and acknowledge all of your loved ones. Yeah, absolutely. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Happy that you have that for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's a lot less taboo when you actually talk about what it is. It's sentimental, is what it is. It's loving. It's nurturing. It's connection to the ones before us and the ones around us that may have passed. You know, and like that's what all I'm trying to do when it comes to the moon meetings. I've been a part of creating it, and I continue to do it just because I know I needed it. I used to travel to Manhattan, the Bronx, New Jersey, all the time to find my spiritual community, right?
Yeah.
And even when I found it, I always felt like an outcast. So it's like kind of like the moon meetings that I do is kind of like for all the misfits that feel that way, like for you to feel safe, no matter where. Like every age, every walk of life has come and sat down, like from 14, 13, 10-year-olds to 75-year-olds. Shout out to David, rest in peace. You know, there's so many people that have come to these meetings that not only have helped one another, they've helped me. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing because just because I facilitate it doesn't mean I'm any greater than anyone. I'm there, I'm learning, I'm letting go of something too. Yeah. Every single moon meet, I'm writing something down, I'm letting it go. So depending on what element the astrological sign is in the moon sign, because every time it's a full moon, it's either a full moon in Aries or Leo or Scorpio, you know, it's always in something. Yeah. So whatever element it's in, that's the element we use to get rid of something. So if it's like in Pisces, like it just was, I had
there's
a bowl.
something in the like retrograde or something. I never understood that. Or are we in that or out of that?
We're in it right now.
I had no idea.
Yeah, there's like 6 planets in it right now. It's
so what is that to me? Like that has no clue what that is, but I've been feeling like edgy, and people say, "Oh, that's retrograde." Mm-hmm. Just tell me simplistically what that is.
In a nutshell, Mercury retrograde is the planet of communications. Oh, okay. So on a scientific level, we're all in an orbit, right? There's a gravitational pull in space that makes them orbit. Yeah. So when Mercury goes into retrograde, which it does every few months, like it happens like 2 to 3 times a year, if I'm not mistaken, it breaks out of the normal gravitational pull, and it looks like it's going backwards, but really it's just going very slow, and it's not catching up to all the planets. So what happens is even airplane pilots take heed to certain routes because it shifts things on a scientific level. Wow. So all things that involve communications, such as like our phones, might be getting glitched up, our laptops. I know like my laptop wasn't even turning on the other day and never had a problem. So I was just like, all right, let this just be retrograde and nothing else. You know what I mean? Wow. Like cars might not start. And then irritability, right? Communication. So like even communications within one another. So as within, as without, right? So if something's affecting us, planets like our planet, it's also going to affect the inside because everything affects in and out, you know?
Yeah, well, like we're water, I don't know how many
70% water. It's like with the moon, you know? Like how can the moon not affect us if the moon controls the tides of the water and we're 70% water?
I just find it wild how everything like that connects.
It's like, wild. It's like science and spirituality are not in a fight. They're not opposed. They actually go perfectly hand in hand. Yeah. And if you listen, because I'm the type of person, just because I believe in a lot of different things that, you know, might be considered like eccentric or just different, right? It doesn't mean that I don't have skepticism with things. Like I definitely am a person that balances logic with spirit, and like I believe, but I don't always have to see to believe, but it takes a little bit for me to really, I have to feel.
Well, isn't like the scientific method of anything proof that it's real? Because, you know, like paranormal investigators go out there, and to this date, I still have yet to see proof. Like they, you know, there's all these things they show us. Oh, look, it moved like a little bit, like with ghosts and whatever. But has there really ever been a solid data that showed that it was real?
That the paranormal is real?
Yeah, like
I
look at all
believe on scientific. I believe there's some scientific research. I haven't personally had. I never personally researched that just because I've had so much personal experience of experiencing it myself. Yeah. It's like there's not telling me like I lived in a haunted house. You know what I mean? If anybody didn't believe in spirits, like they could have just came and been in my house for a little while because it was
well, that's
so
proof
active.
because you experienced it.
Yeah.
So I'm
crazy.
still a skeptic with a lot of those things too. But getting back to the moon ceremonies and stuff, I think that's a fantastic thing. I mean, you're also a community organizer, so that is one level of community organization that you do.
Yeah.
Do you like, or do you have anything coming up that you're organizing, or?
I'm working on a few different things. Like sometimes I like to do just anything that can give back. I do a lot of things that I don't really talk about. I just do what I can. So if it's like, whether it's sitting in a park and like offering a meditation, and in like an area that might not be super wealthy, and different things that like just in needed areas, like I tend to just do things, and I don't really like talk about it. So like when I get asked that question, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, whenever it calls, I'll just do, So whenever the opportunity presents itself, like if someone were to contact me like, hey, like I have this going on, like, would you like to donate or contribute time? Like, absolutely, I'm going to jump onto that. In the future, I plan on just kind of planning more things, where I can help support others. Like, the moon meets are by donation. And they'll always be. I don't believe in putting a price tag on a space that like, on a safe space for people to just come and just be.
Oh, I get you.
And it's like I understand everyone has to eat and like things like that, but when it comes to that in particular, like I was the broke little girl or teenager that needed a community, and I don't ever want to, put make it not accessible for people.
Well, maybe we can change that. I mean, grant season is coming up. Maybe you can apply for a grant that will help facilitate, maybe some projects that you wanted to do and you don't have people to pay for, like it's taken care of. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
I do want to get into quickly involvement with the indigenous people. I was browsing through your link tree, and you have a thing, support indigenous people of upstate New York. Talk about that.
So right now there's not a lot of news and press of this situation that is going on, and forgive me for not explaining it in the best way. How it's been passed has really just been from person to person.
Okay.
There's not news on it, but I have relatives that are out there on the Cayuga, with the Cayuga people of upstate New York that are nationally recognized, but they're actually one of the only recognized tribes that don't have their own land. But they live in these different towns and these different places. And there is this person who has been like running it, and he turned on his own people. And because whether the reasons are to take their land of whatever they have and, money or greed, or turn it into something. And he's been terrorizing these people. Like what he's been having these, they're not even real police. Because the thing is like, it's tricky.
Is he a member of the tribe? I mean, a member of the, oh.
That's what's crazy.
Yeah.
It's really unfortunate. And it's like, so with that, it's like he's sending these troops of, they're not even actual police. It's weird because with indigenous peoples and reservations and stuff, like they tend to have their own police, right? Their own force.
Yeah, they're self-efficient.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like, but in this case, he's taking on all of these different people that aren't even of the tribe majority, and are just like terrorizing, bulldozing people's houses, taking elders out by their throat. Like these kids are witnessing all of this.
Is it just him, or do they have people? He has.
Well,
like,
he has his mercenaries coming in and doing that.
God.
So, and they're calling them the Cayuga police, but they're not. And
why would he do that though?
Personally, I don't know.
Purpose.
Like I said, it's like it could be money, it could be power, it could be greed. Like some people just are tainted by very ugly, dark sides of themselves and have no
I just
remorse.
think it's horrible. You know, like the last election, I remember it was South Dakota, I believe, where there was an indigenous tribe there, and like with voting rights, they wouldn't allow them to vote because they didn't have an address. So they were asking them to get an address, but these are people that they live in a community. Nobody has a house number. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
So they literally were forced to name a street, and it took a long time where it took so long that they missed out on voting. And they're part of the American experience. I mean,
They were the first people of it. They literally,
Right.
they are America, you know, and it's crazy how it's not seen
you're right,
that way.
though. The things that are happening, like that we don't know about, like or even think about, it's crazy.
And there's no press on this. Like the reason I know is because my relatives upstate are holding the front line. Like they were
Wow.
literally detained. And the only reason they were let go of is because they're not people. They're not Cayuga people, and it's although they are indigenous people, that's not their tribe, so they let them go. But
Yeah.
they're taking people. People are going missing. Like it's a serious issue. And like if anybody hears this and wants to donate, in my link tree there are direct links to people
Yeah.
and places. And
Donate to the Cayuga families and indigenous
and it
people
explains that a little bit more. Like there is a video that's on one of them.
Oh, that's great.
So you can understand a little more. The thing is that's hard is like, so because it's separate from, you know, the FBI is not getting involved. Like there's other, like the police aren't getting involved because it's out of their territory. So everyone's just putting a blind eye to this. But this is very real and it's affecting a lot of people. And these kids think that nobody's going to help them. Like you can,
Yeah.
there's videos of these kids, like there's a lot that's happening there. And, you know, I just send my prayers and whatever I can do, you know, to spread the word. And like I said, I apologize if I left anything out or if I misstepped on anything that I said. I'm doing the best with hearing it word of mouth.
Yeah.
But we all know how that happens when we speak of things word of mouth. It's not always exact. So I encourage you to, you know, if this is something that rings to you that you want to participate in, reach out. I can connect you directly with people who are literally there right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll put the link up too on you know my site. And this
Thank you so
podcast
much.
site.
I really appreciate that.
So before we go, I would like you to do a reading for us, and it's what you do on your show, like all the time. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's like something I wait for. Yeah, so I would love for you to do it here.
Okay.
Maybe just like a general, not to me personally, but just like the card of the day or
A reading
however you
for
do
like
it.
whoever, whenever whenever they watch this podcast, because that's the thing. Time is relative, right? So I can do a reading. So whoever is tuned in and is receptive to it may have the message for them whenever it reaches them.
For the podcast.
For
Okay,
this one, yeah.
that would be great.
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
excited for that.
For
Okay. So this is a first for me. And you have a big selection of cards here.
Yes, I do. This is only a few in comparison.
Wow.
I'm in the process of letting go of a lot of them.
Okay.
So, yeah, I wasn't sure which ones I wanted to pull from, so I don't believe I'm going to be pulling from all of them. But I know I'll be pulling from this one.
They're personal too. From what I understand, you know, the tarot cards become a part of you. They're very personal. So how do you let go of a pack?
I personally smudge them, I thank them, and I give them to whoever feel like could use them.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, so it's sort of like a pass on.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna resell them. Like sometimes I play a game a little bit. Like I had the yard sale, the community yard sale here.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and
it
I
was
put
good.
a price on all of the cards that I wanted to let go of. And then
Oh.
when someone would be interested enough to pick it up and be like, "Hey, I want to buy this," I'm like, "It's free. It's for you." And then I would
Nice.
explain, you know, why, because I don't believe in passing
Right.
that on. I want to pass it on, but I just didn't want, you know, when you put free, people just grab things, and this is not something I wanted people to just grab.
Right, I
Yeah.
get it. Yeah. That's good. They're pretty too. They have a lot of really nice artwork on them.
Yeah, they really are. They're incredible. The different artwork, the different artists, the time that goes into creating one, which, yeah.
I always wanted to do a Lizzie Borden card set, but it's just too much time and art and like for every card. How many cards are there?
This one is 73.
Wow, that's a lot of cards.
And there's like 44 and I believe 55 in that one. But it depends. The traditional tarot has a lot. The oracles can have a lot less.
Yeah, so the chakra, wisdom, oracle cards, like chakra are parts of your body, right?
Yes, the energy centers within your body. Its
So
origin
very
is from,
specific to body parts?
yeah, so like our crown would be the top of our head. Our third eye is right here.
Yeah.
Our throat is our throat. Our heart is the center of our chest, so it's in alignment. Our solar plexus is right here. Our sacral is right below our belly button, and our root is at our tailbone. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways. So, that's it. I have it right here.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's really pretty.
Thank
Nice.
you. I actually got that when I was living in Colombia. So, I pray in a good way, Great Spirit, to give a precise reading for whoever is open to receive it whenever they come across this podcast in a good way like that. And show whoever is meant to come out to guide those of us that need it at this time. So right now is it a time to look around in your reality to see what it is that you have, what it is that your heart is wanting and trying to come out and like embrace that, embrace something, one of your natural gifts and talents, looking within yourself to find that and really just create a space where you can open up and share that with the world, but not in like a selfless way, in a very balanced way where it's benefiting you and the people around you. So just remembering to consider yourself in that process. Also taking the time to set limits with people that are draining and making sure that you can set those boundaries where it's like, okay, well, I have 5 minutes right now to talk on the phone, but after those 5 minutes I have to do something. So like just setting those limits and those restraints with people that might not have boundaries without the resentment. Really just like being like, okay, I know this person likes to talk. I'm going to let them know I have this amount of time. And if they don't honor that, I'm going to honor myself and I'm going to exit. So it's about creating those spaces. There's also complacency and vanity came up. This is from a deck that has these little meditations, so I want to open up and read them. Two energy centers to focus on right now would be our root chakra and our throat chakra. What that means, if you're not familiar with chakras, is checking in with, do we feel safe with ourselves? Our fight or flight is our root, and our throat, like our vanity, like, you know, looking at what is it that we are speaking on. Are we speaking on just things that are kind of vain, or are we speaking on things that are, you know, we want to go deeper, but we're not necessarily feeling safe enough to go deeper, right? Out of maybe fear of what other people might perceive us as. But yeah, I just want to share, they have like these cute little stories for these ones, and I really appreciate them. So I'm going to share that. I am feeling a loss of my dreams. The legend. At the end of her life, Flo reflects on the dream she shared with her late husband to move to Florida. They never went. After Flo dies, her daughter discovers that her parents had enough money to move there. As she plans to do what her inheritance, she wonders why her parents never lived their dream. Inspiration. This is a warning not to give up. Beware of coasting along in a situation that is not really what you want. You will never be fully fulfilled by the unmet dreams of others. Personal inquiry. How can I redefine my dreams? How can I stop procrastinating? Key ideas. Finding self-nourishment, leaving dreams unrealized, feeling depleted, time for deep rest, lack of motivation, holding back. Keywords. Staring and reclamation. Meditation. Imagine yourself doing the very thing that you desire. Can you feel the joy of participation in your dream? Look back at what you are leaving behind. For example, how would you live with less money? When are you ready to move towards joy? Open up your eyes. What has been revealed? So taking the time to do those exercises could really show you a lot of what's going on and what's being stored in that space of like, why can't I move forward? I feel like as creatives, that happens all the time when you're not necessarily getting the feedback that you might have anticipated, or, things aren't going as planned, and we have these unexpected curveballs that get thrown into our realities. It's important to remember that our dreams can happen. And even especially when it seems like they're so far-fetched, is when to continue to going if that's something that you truly, truly, truly believe in and is something that you want to give to yourself in the world.
Yeah, that's great.
And vanity is, I need more, bigger, better. Yes, that will make me okay. The legend. Crystal, Peter, and Mike are at the party at Mike Pasha's home. Toasting success in their business, a mysterious old man appears and asks them whether they prefer gluttony or generosity. Puzzled, none of them answered. He reminds them that more does not mean better, and they laughed. Suddenly, they are alone, far from the party, in rising water. We are getting more, cries Peter. Rain falls, and the water rises faster. Play, shouts Crystal. We must do well with what we have. As they begin to have fun in the water, the rain stops. Inspiration. We all say we will stop when we have enough, but there's never enough. You might be looking outside of yourself for validation. Personal inquiry. Am I feeling disconnected from any people in my life? Am I growing away from limiting relationships? Key ideas. Environmental tension, living in illusion, self-doubt, power to change, lesser companions, empty conversations. Keywords. Faith, awareness, and transformation. Meditation. Visualize an aqua light within you. Imagine people you love surrounding you. Feel the light building and spilling onto your loved ones. Send gratitude to those you love and those you have yet to meet. Bless them all. Notice the energy and any message that you receive.
Wow.
So yeah, that's something that's coming out right now.
That's great. I mean, everyone can take something from that, from everything that you just said. I'm going, yeah, check. Wow.
And just to conclude the reading, I want to just pull one more card.
There's a lot of work to be done, right? A lot of work.
Absolutely. There's always work to be done. And right now, I just want to pull one card to make it a little bit more digestible. What is it, something that we can just focus on? What's the first step? What's the first step to embracing ourselves, to setting boundaries, to not giving up on our dreams, and to not having that destination romanticization, right? What can we do here and now? We can allow ourselves to allow things to end and to move forward. Sometimes we stay in these karmic loops because they feel like we deserve them, or like they're familiar and comfortable, yes.
Yeah.
And in that space, just allowing yourself to surrender to the fact that you might not need to do that anymore. Like, you learn the lesson, and it's okay to let that go. It might hurt for a moment, but the sacrifice is, to give something to make it holy, right? And sometimes we have to give parts of ourselves that are comfortable in order to make space for growth, because growth isn't comfortable. You look at nature, growth is never comfortable.
Yeah, you got that right.
Yeah.
But it's necessary.
Absolutely. If we want to move anywhere, go towards our dreams, we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Wow. That's that's just I feel better already because I really like the meditative part of it, you know, to always strive to work better, to be better, to not get stuck in a rut, you know, to move forward like a lot of people procrastinate. And it's all good though. I love the positive energy you put in it. I also want to tell you I'm a fan. And I want to tell everyone to stay tuned for her week. It's a weekly podcast, which I commend you on. That is a lot of work to do a weekly podcast. It's Duality, and it's on live every Wednesday morning. Actually, this spot that we're in right now, Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock?
Yeah,
every Wednesday,
10:30
on the Hub 17 live website. And also, her moon meetings are monthly when it's full moon. So when you start seeing that full moon, look in Instagram. Marketing's always difficult to get the word out, but maybe we can help too. And before we go, I just want to say thank you, Kenny Graham, for help producing and editing and directing all these shows, the lighting for all of the podcasts at Hub 17. And until next time, we'll see you then.